I want to tell you a story. It's the story of a man. You see, my great-grandmother was a real nice old lady. She had a little old lady house, and we used to go there a lot before she passed away several years ago. And my grandparents tore it down to build a new house for themselves on top. One thing I distinctly remember was her attic. Oh boy, was it fucking scary. It was dark, only one light bulb would work, and you had to be real careful because there was a lot of exposed insulation. So if you stepped off the boards to get around, you'd probably fall straight through the ceiling into the room below. But it wasn't so much the atmosphere of the attic, the fact that it was dark, dusty, and smelled a little weird. It was the story my uncle and my dad used to tell me about it. A very long time ago, when my grandpa was just a little boy, they moved into the house. It was nice. 2 bedrooms, a nice bathroom, a dining room, a kitchen. My great-grandparents made a very decent living. My great-grandfather owned a very successful body shop, and my great-grandmother sold Avon. One day, my grandpa was playing in the living room when there was a knock at the door. He answered, and there stood a man. He was wearing a nice suit and holding a very nice hat against his chest, with a polite smile on his face. "Hello there, Junior," he said. "Is your father home?" My great-grandfather approached the door, suspicious. "If you're selling anything, I'm not interested, thanks," he said, before trying to close the door. But no, the stranger interrupted with a start. No, sir, I'm not a salesman. I just want to talk, if you wouldn't mind." "About what?" my great-grandfather asked. "I was wondering if I could take a look around in your attic. You see, I used to live here, and it would really bring back some memories." The man was nervous, but my great-grandfather wasn't about to fall for any con man. "Sorry, sir, my wife's about to finish dinner. Not interested." So he shut the door and ushered my young grandfather away. A day passed, and it was another hot summer day. My great-grandmother was fixing my grandpa lunch when she heard a knock. "Wallace, could you get the door?" she called to great-grandpa, who sighed and obeyed his wife. It was the man again. "Now, see here, mister, I already told you I do not want some stranger in my house. You leave me and my family alone before you upset my son and wife. And if you upset them, then I think there's going to be some trouble." "Please, sir," the man pleaded, wringing his hands. "It will only take a moment. I absolutely must get in there, for even 10 minutes. This time my grandfather didn't give him the liberty of a goodbye, only a slammed door. A few days passed, peaceful playing, working. The life of your average Canadian upper-middle-class family took place as usual. My great-grandmother, great-grandfather, and grandfather sat eating dinner one evening. I like to imagine they were having my great-grandma's roasted and chicken and potatoes. Delicious. But I digress. Again, a knock at the door, and it sounded important. "I swear, if that's that son of a bitch trying to get in our attic again, I'll be turning his clock out good," my great-grandfather muttered, getting up. "Wallace, please, nothing in front of little Jim," my great-grandmother cried. It was the man again. He was not, however, alone. He had another man with him who looked very similar. "Now, sir, before you chase us away, please understand we're brothers, and we absolutely must speak with you," he said before my great-grandfather could curse him out, up and down. "Well, spit it out then, man. You've gone uninterrupted my supper after a long day's work. This had better be good," my great-grandfather threatened. "Tell me, sir, have you ever heard strange noises in your house? Scratching, shuffling, maybe even a light moaning from your attic?" the new man asked calmly. My great-grandfather turned stone cold. His son, my grandpa, had often whined of scratching and other sounds to which both his parents attributed to maybe mice. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. Why do you ask? He answered coolly, crossing his arms. The men at the door exchanged worried glances. If you'd only let us come up to your attic. You could come up if you like, but it would rather be better if you told your son to get in his room, your wife in the kitchen, and us fellows to go upstairs. So my great-grandfather told my grandpa to play, asked his wife to clear the table, and led the men up into the dank attic. They only used it for storage at the time. There were no real reasons to come up there, ever. The two men looked around and knocked on the wood of the walls in the attic, in various different spots. Hollow. Hollow. Not hollow. My great-grandfather froze as they nodded at one another, before turning to my great-grandfather. Now, sir, believe us when we say we'll pay for any damages that need to be fixed, and that what we're about to do might be shocking, maybe even frightening to you. So you may very well not want to see what's about to happen. My great-grandfather pondered right there and then about turning his heel and waiting downstairs, but no. He had to be the man and stay there for his family's sake. Go on then. What's in there? He asked. He wished he hadn't. The two men pulled at the boards, peeling away the old wood fairly easily, and my great-grandfather felt vicious bile build up in his stomach and throat. The smell. Oh God, the smell. His body, frail, gnarled. The skin was a ghostly white, and his bare teeth were yellow as freshly boiled sweet corn. His eyes were open, glazed over, staring. The pupils were milky. He was blind. The whites were barely that. Instead, they were bloodshot to the point that it was almost unbelievable. And his fingernails resembled long brown talons. Horror filled my great-grandfather as the two men bowed their heads. It's him, said one. The other one only sighed and covered his nose with his sleeve. This thing, this remnant of a once living man, was dead, but freshly dead. That was when my great-grandfather had reached his boiling point. Now, you had better both explain to me right now what in God's name is going on here. Is this some kind of sick joke? I ought to blow the brains out of you two where you stand, he bellowed. Sam, go get the blankets from the car. I'll explain, one man said as Sam nodded and left. Sir, please understand we're no monsters. You see, this is our brother, he began fretfully, looking at the mangled creature in the wall. Your brother? You sick sons of bitches locked your own brother away in a wall! My great-grandfather cried out, placing a hand on his queasy stomach. Never, sir, never, said the man. My father just passed. We never even knew the poor boy existed our whole entire lives. My brother and I... Now, it would seem that our brother here was born with some sort of mental retardation. Something that my mother and father couldn't handle as parents, so they chose to do the unthinkable rather than face the public with their shame, he exclaimed, motioning for the shell of a man. Mind you, this story takes place in a time where a mental defect was seen as terribly embarrassing. My great-grandfather held his head and looked at the dead thing, and then back to the stranger. Get this thing out of my house. Send someone over to patch up your mess, and then never, ever come near my family again. You hear me? He ordered. Oh, you can rely on that, sir. We had not wanted to bother you in the first place, but we couldn't sleep at night knowing some poor family was stuck with him living in your walls. You see, he was probably sucking the moisture from the ceiling and eating bugs and mold. I would think it's amazing he could have survived. My grandfather solemnly said nothing, and only watched as Sam returned, and the two men bundled their strange, demented, and dead brother leaving with only a courteous thank you followed by a repairman, and a generous fruit basket a day after. When my grandmother asked what happened, my grandfather couldn't bear telling her. "Rats," he said. "Just rats."